Okay, great. Hi, everybody. And again, a little change of scenery, and I'm able to do it because the sun is out a little bit longer, and so can I be. And I just wanted to talk about when life can get a little wild and crazy, and typically deals to us the unexpected. And it requires for us to do something that we don't always do so easily, and that is to trust ourselves. And for me, that really boils down to a simple equation that I'd like to share with you today. Trusting yourself equals knowing yourself. And I said, well, Skyfire, what's that got to do with anything? It has everything to do with it. So I want to talk a little bit more in detail with that because the more that you are comfortable with knowing yourself and operating within that, you're going to find that life can get as wild and as woolly as it wants. But you know that you'll be able to count on at least one person, at least on earth, which would be yourself, hopefully, in addition, of course, to creator and the others. But the thing about knowing yourself is you have to be honest about your limitations. And I know a lot of people don't like looking at that. I'm definitely one of those people guilty of don't tell me no, I'll show you, right? But if you are honest about your limitations, then you can not overextend yourself. You can definitely say, okay, this is as far as I can go. And instead of trying to overcompensate for something that is not within your realm and you may not do well anyway, you can focus your energy on that which you do well, your strengths, if you will. And then the other thing that you need to be honest about are your temptations. We all have got them, right? And some might have a stronger will than another. But, I guess the best way to put it is unless if you absolutely have to, might put yourself in that uncomfortable position, So if you are honest about what tempts you into whether it be overextending yourself one way or the other, over giving, overspending, whatever that over is, then if it's not within, you're putting yourself in that environment, then it's one less thing to contend with. But I want you to get out of the idea that, oh no, no matter what, I have to overcome it. It's a good attitude to have, but don't make things harder than they have to be. So be very sincere about your temptations. Some of them can very well be honest ones, where at the end of a long work week or work day, at the end of the day, you might be very well tempted to blow everything off. Rightfully so. You've worked, right? So, but honor that. Honor that. And I guess what goes hand in hand with that is being very honest without negative self talk or criticism about what you can handle. Okay. And we all have that. I guess it kind of goes up with the limitations, but knowing what you can handle. And the reason why I put them in two separate categories is knowing your limitations is your character and, dealing more with personality and so forth, stamina, where knowing what you can handle, that can change from day to day. So you can have a spectacular day and you can handle anything. And then you can have pardon the language, a craptastic day. And you're lucky if you can handle, somebody making a lot of noise, and not trying to eat them alive. So knowing what you can handle is acknowledging where you're at any given time on any given day. So it's again honesty. You're not overcompensating, you're not being lazy, just saying, okay, honoring this is who I am, this is where I'm at for today. And within that, this is what I can manage, what I can handle. And what this also does is that say that life doesn't always care what you can handle. At least that's been my experience. Then on those days that life is throwing a curveball at you and you feel more like life is playing dodgeball, then you know when to ask for help. And that's a key component. And there's so many times that there's this idea of you're being a burden, you shouldn't have to ask for help. Get over it. Some days you will. And I always say this to you: imagine somebody that you know and care about, and you can feel that they need help. And it can be a bit exasperating when you can see them struggling or suffering unnecessarily. and you're being made to sit on your hands. And the opposite of how good it feels when they do allow for you to help in, you know, lend a helping hand. And you can just feel them, thank heavens, and you can feel good. So, with this idea of the good red road of giving and receiving equally, this is balance. And it's also very realistic. And the final thing about learning to trust yourself is, again, sitting down and assessing when it comes to a topic or an issue, what is your knowledge and wisdom level? So, again, very distinct. Knowledge is facts, what you know. Wisdom is what you've gained through experiences in combination with this. So, if you're, again, just saying, this is my truthful, very candid assessment of whether the topic be, big loop de loo could be love or going with a work venture or growing spiritually, whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is. And you feel like, again, life is having you say, okay, yanking out those safety nets, let's see what you got. But if you're honest about this is how much I know about a topic or an issue, and this is my level of wisdom and experience with it. And if you come from that, it does a couple things. One, it really takes off the pressure. You don't have to be, you know, everything for everybody, know it all at all times. Last count, the only one who knows everything about everything, anything, yada, 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 creator. Rest of us, we're still learning. Okay. So with that, you can say, okay, I only know this much. And maybe what's being asked of you, whether it be at work or a relationship, is more complex. I need to know this much. Not only information, but just I don't have the experience to even maybe make good decisions, or I don't even know what I don't know. That happens too. And then at that point, you can say, okay, now that I have insight into myself. Once again, it goes to being able to ask for help, or sometimes just saying, you know what, maybe even asking for more time. Not everything is, life and death has to be done in that instant. Get rid of a lot of the internal pressures, and you're going to find life is easier. So these are the steps of trusting yourself. And since you're growing, evolving, this again will grow as well. But I assure you, learning to trust yourself is knowing yourself. And the more you take the time to do that and embrace all of you, all of you. Think again, I always do this little mind game because, like, oh no, easy on everybody else, hard on me. But the trick question is, if you saw somebody whom you love treating themselves as harshly or with that same maybe unrealistic standards that you might treat yourself, and you see them suffering, and you have the permission to step in, compassionately, wouldn't you? And then sit down and think about the advice you would give. Guess what? That's part of trusting yourself, because 9 times out of 10, that advice that you would give to that loved one is the advice that you should follow. So this is really the big one. And with that, if you know yourself, if you can trust yourself because you know yourself, and life throws, says to you like it will, and again, the energetic of this week, with no safety net. Your safety net starts to go. All of the different ways that you used to be able to make decisions or get your bearings, it's like throwing a magnet under a compass, and you're like, oh my gosh. So number one, have that OMG moment. Okay, that's called normal. I would say to you at that point, you can appreciate the position you're in, but it's a moment. And that's what I have to say. Part of feeling more, I'm going to say, at ease. I don't know if you could ever be comfortable when life starts, throwing wild cards at you by pulling out safety nets, and the old ways of getting your bearings and old ways of doing just begin to outright fail. But to be more at ease with it, that accepting the universal paradox, there's only, one constant in life, and that constant is change. So where you are losing your bearings in one moment, then this, it allows for you to say, you know what, this is a moment. I've lost my bearings now, but it's not going to be a forever thing. And the minute that you can do that, you can just relax and know that this is not an eternal moment. And if you already begin to live by life is change anyway, like the changing of the seasons, the cycles of the moon, the generations and so forth, then it'll be like, okay, this is just part of that life cycle. And you're going to find yourself a lot better if that you begin to integrate that into your life philosophy. The other thing that I would say to you where you can feel more comfortable is to be resourceful. So what happens is that a lot of times, and we all do it, we get caught up with life and we get used to doing things a certain way. But then when life creates changes, we don't know what to do. But if from the very beginning, you begin to look at your resources of your knowledge, your wisdom, your physical resources, the people, the network of people that you might have, or so forth, and know that they are able to be, when you have need, and ask respectfully to assist you in a myriad of ways, not just clip, clop in one direction. That makes you breathe a lot easier too. And one of the things that I would say to practice this, there's two ways of practicing this that deals with being comfortable with being without a safety net. And the first one would be is to be creative. So it kind of goes with the being resourceful. When you look at something, um, whether it be finances, whether it be being able to have contacts with networks or a group, begin to see the different ways that they are able to help you versus just the one original way that you were thinking. And I'm going to equate this to two things. I had selected for this an image of a woman, very brave, my goodness, crazy brave, walking literally barefoot on a sway line between two mountains and having enough confidence in herself and her resourcefulness to make it. And in parentheses, she did. But what this comes from is when you are coming here with no safety net, it actually begins way before then. The first one is being able to say, okay, worst case scenario, because everything is a cycle, right? So we're here and this is at some point going to come to an end. And what if it suddenly does in the middle of things? I'm not expecting. Then what? So begin to play the game, then what? Don't get anxious about it. Okay. But what happens is, and this is very much for my friends who are in the military and first responders. If you know what to do, during a drill, then when the real crisis happens or the real event happens, you have a plan. You might still again have to just think out of the box, but at least there's a direction. And with what you have, you're not stuck with just everything is just fits into one box. It's able to have diversity in that strength. And the second exercise that I would say to you is uh, learning to solve problems in different ways. And that links with one of my favorite things, which is creativity. So when you're exercising your creativity in this particular instance of what if life suddenly pulls out the safety net and the bearings just go right out the window? If you begin as a habit of being able to learn to solve problems in more than one way, then you become extremely flexible and you can adapt on the fly. Or as my one friend used to say, you're able to, change things on a dime and give change. All right. So when that happens, it's not a big deal. You're like, okay, you know, plan A and B didn't work. So here's C and D. Worst case scenario, I break glass, I ask for help, and other things come. But if you get into that habit of being able to use your creativity in this capacity of also of solving problems in more than one way, it's kind of cool because you can discover new ways of doing things that might actually have been better than you have thought. But it requires that ability to hang loose. It requires that ability to not have to be right or hold on that there has to be only one way of doing things. It is being as flexible as the sacred winds that blow around us. And it's very much like that analogy of, in a hurricane, which tree is more liable to be able to survive being a direct hit, the sturdy oak tree or the palm tree? And I think we know the answer to that one because for you, my friends who live by where the palm trees exist, where there tend to be more hurricanes, how many oak trees are there? Not a heckin' lot. And the oak trees are there not as big as the ones we have here up north for a reason. So be comfortable with the idea of being adaptable and that it's okay that if you lose your bearings, you have more than one way of doing it and being resourceful. And the last thing I say about when life begins to throw you wild cards and, suddenly, nothing works. It's going to sound completely crazy, but that's okay. I'm a little crazy sometimes. Know when to quit. Yep, you heard me. A lot of times when the universe, throws you, an atomic bomb, and yes, your world can, at some point, depending on how severe it is, can feel like your world as you know it is coming to an end. And for some of us, I know we've had that life experience. Yes, you're going to have that shock moment. That's called normal, that feeling of being uprooted. But instead of trying to go back to what was, instead of trying to force the issue, and what does that create? Misery, endless suffering, because you will keep on responding or trying to impose the past, a past that is not relevant. So if you begin to say, you know what, maybe the universe, and it is giving you an opportunity to hit the reset button. You may not have felt ready for it, you may not like it. Doesn't mean you have to like it. But if you go into the concept of, every end is a new beginning. And again, just like my namesake, the Phoenix, every end is a new beginning. Rising from those ashes. Yeah, you cough up some of the soot. But after that, if you really embrace this concept of new life, and then in that stage where you might be in the beginning a little weak, you again allow that receiving by expressing, uh, you know, what it is that you need in the way that you need it, then you will find that, you might still have some nostalgia. You go from shock and grief to anger. Like you really do go through the stages, the 5 stages of grief. But then you come back, and we would say there's a fifth stage where it goes beyond acceptance. You begin to appreciate the new life and the new you that emerges from it and the new people. And this becomes a beautiful rebirthing opportunity versus remaining forever in shock to a past that can never be reclaimed, nor should it be. And I think the final topic that I'd like to talk about is making mistakes. So, as you can guess from what I've talked about previously, with trusting yourself and life, pulling out the safety nets and everything else, you're going to make mistakes. I guess it's like another constant, right? Yes, life is going to be change. The other constant is you're only human. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen, right? And be comfortable enough within yourself to allow that. You know, how else are you going to learn? That's one thing that was said is, I remember way back in the day when, and for those of you who might remember RCA used to be a company way back in the day. And I remember I had a boss who was a good guy. And he said, how you can tell when somebody's not working? It's when they're not making any mistakes. So of course you don't do a lot of mistakes, but it's reasonable. So if you get comfortable that, yeah, you're going to make a mistake and you're going to learn from it. And that gives an opportunity again. Think about it this way. You're going to do your best to not make mistakes. That's fair. But if you do, then what does this do for you? Two things, which is what we talked about, trusting yourself. It increases your knowledge base and increases your wisdom base. So you win anyway, right? So yes, you might have that moment of feeling uncomfortable with making a mistake. And, depending what it is, I've done some whoppers and I still get ribbed about. Hey, that's all part of the fun, right? Poking at each other from time to time. But if you are with a good crew of people, they understand that too. They allow you your humanity as you should allow your own. So if you embrace the idea of, I will do my level best, I will try my level best, You know, I will not ever be perfect, but I will be perfectly myself, my authentic self, and strive to grow. Not even the one God could ask more. And if there are those who insist on laughing or poking or what have you, then my friends, turn that away, because that speaks more about them and their character, because they do not see you. But the ones that do will understand. And just like you would have the kindness and compassion if somebody makes a mistake to help them, and it gets an honest mistake, you know, and I'm not talking about somebody who's being lazy. I'm talking about honest mistake, that you would help to pick them up and dust them off. Let them do that for you too, you know, and say, okay, with every mistake, every honest mistake that I make, you know, I am having the opportunity to increase knowledge of myself, knowledge about this thing that I made a goof on, and to increase my wisdom. It makes it easier. And if you still find that you have those emotions, which are normal, sometimes you can feel guilty or embarrassed, or sure, you know, who doesn't feel like that? Um, have those moments, work them off in a healthy way. Don't hold on to them. Don't hold on to them. Right. I kind of equate making mistake, and you're going to laugh, but you know, for those who were in high school, you know, and you would get like the zit, and you're like, oh my God, I'm disfigured. I got the zit. And most times people did care. Or if they were around you, you know, your age group or around there, they had them too, you know. Nobody cared. You know, you're the only one thinking you were disfigured, that people were like staring. Who cares? And then it would go away. Mistakes are like that too. A thing is only a thing if you make it a thing. So once you distill the good from a mistake, which is processing the emotion, getting the knowledge, the wisdom, and growing from it, let it go. Let it go. And at the very least, they become stories that you can tell others. Teaching stories. You know, you don't have to go to the stories of hundreds of years. You have your own teaching stories to tell. And this is how we grow and share with each other. We all can come from that universal experience. So, as you can tell, the sun is going down, and I guess I've carried on enough. So, again, such a delight to be with all of you. And I'm hoping to have some very, very good news within the next couple of weeks. I don't want to say anything yet about mid to late April. I might have some very good news, but not going to say anything yet. But until then, again, please, as always, I thank you for all of you in advance who, again, like and comment and share. It means a lot. And to keep the positivity going. And I beg of you that if it's in your heart, please, by sharing this conversation and inviting others to the same, we are working together to make the world a better place. We do not have to fear not having a safety net, because we got each other. And the Creator blesses us, and the universe has got our backs in a good way. So, with that, from my heart to yours, the brightest, bright blessings to you and to those whom you love. So, until we meet again, my friends, Wanishi, thank you so much, and joyous spring. See you later.